Hey, what's going on, everybody? It's Matthew. Welcome back. We are on the sixth installment of the My Favorite AWA Remco Figure Tournament. So we are winding down to the end of this first round. Right now, we do have at least two videos prepared for the last 10 matchups. And then, of course, I mentioned the 11 figures that I had left over that I completely forgot about. So I'm going to try and stretch that into probably another two videos. So episode 6 and 7. So yeah, we should have about 9 videos total, if I'm not mistaken. So I didn't write these names down, but I do have the figures, obviously laid out from previous drawings. And this is what we're looking at today. From the Gagne Raiders, Greg Gagne taking on Custom Honky Tonk Man. That's going to be the second Honky Tonk Man in this tournament. We're looking at Mascaris versus Matt Osborne. Sergeant Slaughter is going to take on Curly Brown. Looks like Dick Beyer is going to take on, who is this? Blackjack Mulligan. And Mortis is going to take on Macho Man. Alright, so let's start off with the first set of characters. So I did show off this figure when I first got him, and I showed him off when I was doing the Honky Tonk Man, review videos where I was going over all the different Honky Tonk Man figures I had and putting them in order of of my favorite figures. And he wasn't obviously part of that video because it was a custom figure, and I wasn't really including customs if I didn't have to. But that head mold, as I said before, was one of the most perfect head molds you'll ever find on any action figure. And to have it on a Remco, pretty much a toy company that's notorious for not having the best, likeness, that's pretty exceptional. And when I first thought of doing this tournament, man, I honestly believed that this Honky Tonk Man would actually win this tournament. Am I still set on Honky Tonk Man as my winner? I think right now, based on the figures I've looked at, I think this has got to be a one in probably a top 5 or top 6 opportunity to win. Absolutely love this figure. Now, this one or the other Honky Tonk Man in jumpsuit, which one would I take if they were scoring off against each other? Honestly, right now, I don't know. I think I might enjoy this head sculpt just a little bit better, but that jumpsuit accessory, man, that's going to be really hard to make that determination. And hopefully it doesn't come to it where I have to have one against the other, because I'm going to be stuck. Honky Tonk Man, absolutely amazing. Now, the Greg Gagne High Flyers figure has already moved forward. As you know, the High Flyers, probably a couple of my all-time favorite figures from the Remco line, among the original figures. When it comes to Greg Gagne as the Gagne Raiders, again, man, you're sticking with the military jumpsuit with this whole camouflage, woodland camouflage color scheme. Amazing. Absolutely love the figure. It's the exact same figure from the other one. The only difference is they switch out the outfits. Easy enough. Amazing piece. And because I covet a lot of these army outfits, would that give him a leg up? I think it will. So obviously, accessories are going to play a huge role in a lot of my decisions. Outstanding figure, and this is what's tough. To me, these aren't just second round figures. These are both third, fourth, fifth round type figures. And the fact that I have to have them square off against each other, first time go, it sucks, because I'm going to lose an amazing figure right off the bat. Again, what do I do, guys? I talk when I don't know who I'm going to choose. And I've already talked about these guys in previous videos, so I'm not going to say a lot about back history or stuff like that for these guys. I'm just going to go off of what I see. I'm going with Honky Tonk Man. Yeah, he's already got a Honky Tonk Man in this tournament, but you know what? There's already a Greg Gagne in this tournament as well. So, love this figure, no doubt, but that head sculpt, to me, it's comparable to that second Ultimate Warrior figure that we had. Amazing. Or the Brody Lee head sculpt. I think it's going to be really tough once it boils down to the final rounds. That is a solid figure. So, I am going to go with Honky Tonk Man defeating Gagne Raiders' Greg Gagne. Next one up is going to feature Mil Mascaris taking on Matt Bourne. So, Matt Bourne, obviously, this right here is the era of the Rat Pack, right there with Jim Duggan and Ted DiBiase. Matt Bourne also was the first iteration of Doink the Clown, and he really created a character that was kind of psychotic, kind of like gives you that Pennywise from It version, and based on a lot of his inner demons and stuff, he really made that character his own. And even after he was fired from the WWF, he was still on the indie circuit portraying Doink. A really shoddy version of Doink the Clown, obviously. But he ended up getting sued by the WWF because, hey, it's WWF property. And he countersued being because here's his character, how he portrayed, Doink the Clown. I don't remember what happened with that. I think Matt Osborne won because I think years later, he was still portraying Doink. So, as a family man, with his daughter and everything, I think he was probably a very good father and everything. But a lot of alcohol and drug abuse, a lot of anger problems. Previously, I've talked about how he was in a bar fight with, B. Brian Blair. And Blair beat him down, and the man just would not stay down, kept getting up and kept attacking him. Tried to actually bite his ear off and poke out his eye and stuff. It's just crazy. And of course, around 92, 93, he had, I think it was SummerSlam against Crush. And they had the second Doink the Clown kind of come in, and they were kind of imitating each other. And, that was foreshadowing because Matt Osborne was, of course, replaced. And you had, a lot of different guys come in. Skinner, obviously, Kern, who came in and was one of the big names that replaced Matt Bourne as Doink the Clown. I like the figure because it's somebody different. Again, it kind of gives you that Hacksaw and Ted DiBiase look that we've seen in previous videos. Is it the best figure ever? A adequate paint job. Head sculpt is, so-and-so. And of course, what do I talk about with these bodies? I hate this right here. So that obviously decreases the value. Mil Mascaris, I really don't know anything about Mil Mascaris. I've seen a couple videos on YouTube where he's wrestling Hulk Hogan and whatnot, but I just don't have any history with this guy. And the funny thing is, several months ago, I've talked about, the Ram Treasures Mil Mascaris LJN custom, which I think that was the downfall of the company. And I might talk about this in the future because that was, once I saw that figure, I'm like, you know what, that's it. Up to that point, I was saying whatever they come out with, I'm going to buy regardless of what it is to support the company and to keep my collection going strong. But I just wasn't spending $140 on a $3 action figure. And up until his death, the Iron Sheik LJN was like a $3 figure. And all they did was, again, cut off the head, put on a Mil Mascaris head, give it a different paint job. It looked great with the mask and the paint and everything, but I absolutely despised the Iron Sheik fighting pose. And ever since then, I've probably purchased maybe a few figures because their figures just aren't all that. And that really is all I know about Mil Mascaris, unfortunately. And who was it? I want to say the Destroyer had all these major feuds with Mil Mascaris in New Japan Pro Wrestling, and I think that really set Japan off as a stateside commodity where a lot of people were really enjoying foreign wrestling and weren't just strictly sticking to local wrestling or the big promotions like AWA, WWF, etc. So, for me, I think this is an easy choice. As much as I really like the Matt Bourne Matt Osborne, character, even with his, demons and whatnot. The Mil Mascaris figure is just light years better. Better paint job, better, just all around great figure. So yeah, Mil Mascaris, moving on to round 2. The next matchup is going to feature Sergeant Slaughter as he squares off against Curly Brown. So the Sergeant Slaughter is actually one I think is probably better as like a Colonel De Beers type of figure than a Sergeant Slaughter. But I bought him as Sergeant Slaughter, and that's what I'm going to look at him as, is Sergeant Slaughter. And, sticking with the camel pants, with the black shirt, kind of like your Series 3 Hasbro. So, again, when I look at that, it's going to be Sergeant Slaughter. The only thing I would have recommended differently on this figure, and why I kind of look at it as the Colonel De Beers character instead, I wouldn't have used a green beret on here. I don't think the Sergeant Slaughter character was ever portrayed as, special forces or anything like that. I think he was like portrayed as like a drill sergeant. So having that drill sergeant hat, like you would see in like the Series 3 Hasbro, would have been a much better use than what you find with the beret. And up until I think early 90s, I think the Army used garrisons anyways. So for those who don't know what a garrison is, if you watch Forrest Gump, that hat he wears on his uniform, that's a garrison. So beret doesn't look bad, but to me it's not 100% Sergeant Slaughter. Adequate figure nonetheless. Curly Brown. Looking at this figure and looking at the next referee that I have in the next video, again, I already have the figures laid out. They're going up against stiff competition, and here, this is what sucks. I don't know if the referee is going to win in either matchup. Not this one and not the next one, because the figures that they're going against are just so amazing. But the referee figures, in my opinion, are actually some of the best original Remco line figures. I don't want to say goodbye to the referee. I mean, it's just a generic referee. I don't think again, Curly Brown. Who is Curly Brown? I've never actually looked that up, so I really don't know. But I'm thinking he's generic. I don't know. I'll go online after this video or after the next video I make. I plan on making a couple videos today and kind of do some research on him. It doesn't really matter because I am going to select Sergeant Slaughter, but I just want people to realize how awesome of a figure this guy is, and how much I do appreciate the referee Remco figures. I think they're amazing. Top 10 figures, probably not. Top 15, I would argue yes. This one's kind of sucks because the leg is super freaking loose. I think both of these figures both came from Mr. Slowdive on eBay, so that's pretty awesome to have gotten these in at the same time. And oddly enough, they, random selection, and they both were picked out. Probably because when I got them in, obviously I wrote the name down, threw it on the top of the hat, and just kind of dove in and picked out the top 2 papers. So obviously, those being on top, I should have shuffled. Yeah, great figures. Sergeant Slaughter, obviously, moving on to round 2 for me. Alright, next one's up. Who was this? This was... Alright, so we got... First guy up is the Destroyer, Dick Bayer, or Richard Bayer, I'm not really sure how you pronounce it. And he is squaring off against... Alright, Robert Windham. Yep. Blackjack Mulligan. I know he's a legend. I don't have a lot of history or understanding of Blackjack Mulligan. Again, you take that Windham family name, and that means something in the wrestling world. Obviously, Barry Windham's father, father-in-law to Mike Rotunda, grandfather, I think on like the mother's side, to Bray Wyatt, etc. So I don't know a lot about his early career. I wrote down some names because I wanted to make sure that I said this correctly. Sometimes I get the names mixed up. So in like around 1987-ish, I think this was prior to Demolition, if I'm not mistaken. So in the late 1980s and 87, you had the Machines come out, and that included Big Machine, who was Blackjack Mulligan. You had Super Machine, and that was original X Demolition character Bill Eadie, and then you had Giant Machine, who was portrayed by like Andre the Giant. And there are a couple guys who've been teaching me a little bit about Big Machine, so obviously I had to do some history, some look up on that to kind of get a feel for like what was the Big Machine all about. And they later on they included guys like Hogan and Piper. Piper Machine I think it was called, Hulk Machine. So they weren't together for long, maybe a year or so. And they obviously were squaring off against the Heenan family. I think Heenan got Andre suspended from WWF, so he came back as a Giant Machine in order to keep wrestling. I thought that was incredible. Again, I had a couple guys kind of like give me a little history lesson on his character, so I thought that was pretty awesome to learn about. Again, Blackjack Mulligan, don't know a lot about him outside of that. I think I read like in the early 90s he and his son were like arrested for like counterfeiting. I'm like, man, you've been wrestling for darn 20 plus years, 30 years, who knows, and you're conducting criminal activity. Why? Did you not make a good living as a wrestler? But I talked about Mil Mascaris and his battle with the Destroyer, and the Destroyer, Dick Beyer, again, this guy was mostly a Japanese wrestler. He wrestled for New Japan Pro Wrestling for a good chunk of his career. I think from like the 70s into the early 90s or something like that. Again, and not a very familiar character. I got the figure because it is absolutely amazing looking. And again, I don't have a lot of these luchador type wrestlers, so I saw that. I had to pick him up. I'm glad I did, because once I did some quick research on him, and I saw the face of this luchador wrestler, the mask, I'm like, you know what? That's spot on. That is absolutely fantastic. Another NWA wrestler, and like I said, I feel like everyone who wrestled in the 70s and 80s went through AWA at some point. Two great looking figures aesthetically. I love the fact that they have Mulligan the hat. That's awesome. And with the design of the boots, I think that's pretty solid. These are just pure white. So basically, it's going to go against Head Sculpt, and I don't know. I like them both. I think either one could do fine in this tournament. But I guess at this point, it comes down to which one do I think can make it further in this tournament, has a better chance of moving on round after round. I really don't have the history with either one, so I'm really good with either selection. I think I'm going to go with Robert Windham's Blackjack Mulligan to move on to round two. Last matchup, it's a good one, but it's also a sad one because I'm going to lose a fantastic figure. I really wish I reshuffled these a little bit better because I don't want to lose either one. These are awesome figures. It is going to be Mortis squaring off against Macho Man. So we have Mortis, Chris Kanyon, who was a wrestler for about, 10 years, mid-90s into like the mid-2000s. Here's yet another guy that died way too young. I think he was born like 1970-ish, probably died in like 2010. So, a 40-year life. He was not an old man, He did not have an opportunity to live his life. man had a lot of living to go on, and from what I've seen in, past videos, he looked like such a fun character. And I think, I've read many commentators believe that he was a very underrated wrestler as well. And who was it? The Wrath or something like that, who tag team with Mortis, and pretty awesome character. I mean, look at the design of this figure. I freaking love it. He reminds me of Laparca. I think I got this one and Laparca at the same time, or maybe I got this one first. I don't remember, but I really gravitated towards both figures because whichever one came first, I gravitate towards the other one because they kind of remind me of the same kind of character, same luchador. Well, actually, not really a luchador though. I mean, just because you wear a mask doesn't make you a luchador. So, with Dick Beyer, yes. With Chris Kanyon, not so much. Just a great looking figure. I love the paint scheme throughout. This might be my winner. I have to go with Chris Mortis, right? It only makes sense. But then you got the Macho Man. I already have one Macho Man who has already moved forward to round 2. I keep saying that shouldn't make a difference, but sometimes I feel like it really does. And I love the fact that he's in this 1990 Series 1 Hasbro look. And yeah, you look at the Series 3 LJN, but they've got more of a pink/purple, where he's got that solid orange, which is awesome. With these figures that have this type of... So that's the one downside with a lot of these figures. Obviously, you want the most crisp, clean figure possible, and when you get this, that is so irritating. And it's not like you buy them for $5 or $10, They probably cost you $30, $40 per figure, so quality for this one, maybe not there. I don't want to pass on Macho Man. I know a lot of people is going to boycott if I don't keep Macho Man in my tournaments for as long as humanly possible. But how can I pass on this Canyon figure? I actually said I like this one better than the other one, so that does play a role as well. I don't know, guys. I think I'm going to do it. I'm going to move Chris Kanyon forward to round 2. When I first looked at this tag team, I honestly believed that Macho Man was going to be my victor, but man, this is just such a better figure, and at least with the body, his body doesn't do this, so that obviously plays a role. And with a figure tournament, you got to take everything that you possibly can into consideration. And does it really take away from the history of a Macho Man or the playability or design, anything like that? The Mortis has designs up the yin-yang compared to Macho Man. Macho Man has history as a legendary character, one of my all-time favorites, and I don't know anything about Chris Kanyon, but at the same time, guys, it is a figure tournament first and foremost, as I always say, and I gotta choose the best figures, and I just think that this one is lights out. So, just to do a quick recap, Honky Tonk Man defeated Greg Gagne's Gagne Raiders. Mil Mascaris defeated Matt Osborne. Somebody's going to get mad because I either call him Matt Osborne or I call him Matt Bourne. I kind of go back and forth. And Southern Slaughter defeated Curly Brown. Blackjack Mulligan defeated the Destroyer. And now Mortis defeated Macho Man. The next video, I'm going to actually switch some things up. I'm going to try to actually incorporate the other 11 figures into this. So the original setup I had, I'm going to jumble it up a little bit. And hopefully I can make that video today and have it in queue ready to go probably Sunday or so. Let's see, today is Thursday, so I'll have this video posted on Friday. So the next video, Sunday. Alright, thank you so much for watching, guys, and I will see you in the next video. Goodbye, everyone.